Welcome back to another Spotlight interview series. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Rachael Webb. Thank you so much for being here, Rachael. Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here, Willow. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Rachel and I worked together, but primarily, I would say, 2015. I guess it was the
hmm
year 2015, and initially, Rachel and I met in San Francisco. Even long before that, a few years prior. And so, before we get started and dive in, I would love for you to share with everyone watching what is the brilliant, unique, awesome magic that you are bringing into the world. Worked since you and I worked together, like love it. But tell us this current incarnation.
Yeah, thank you. I am a spiritual business advisor and mentor, and I work with entrepreneurs and creatives all over the world. And I feel like my specialty is to help people let their magic out, as I call it. And that really involves, it's usually around authenticity and being able to show up in a way that is like sharing your gifts, but also that particular sharing your gifts usually with my clients has to do with a spiritual attribute of that, of knowing that yes, you might be a painter, or yes, you might be an entrepreneur, or but that there is a special magical way in which you live your life in your normal life that is not totally coming through as much as, I always talk about like being in the magic closet. And so there's like, what it feels like when you're like, and like a little bit hiding and a little bit editing here and a little bit like over explaining and justifying here and there. And so really giving people permission to allow themselves to relax the walls that they've built up around themselves and to allow themselves to be their full magical, mystical as fuck type of person in the world, and to bring that into their business, because that's not traditionally a sphere in which those two worlds overlap. And I found it to be a lifesaver. Like literally, I was sick and I'm well because I follow my path. And I also know that when things start to get wonky, it usually means that there's another layer. It's like you're also never done pulling back the layers. And it's like, okay, where is the magic hiding now? Like, how can I pull another mask off? And how can I show up more fully as myself? So yeah, that is the special blend of magic that I am bringing to the world in this current incarnation.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and I mean, I actually I love everything you're doing. I obviously like so resonate, and especially just the community that you've catalyzed through this. So, I would love for there's all these, like, first of all, when I first started working with Rachel, I love, and I even will still say this because it's such a fun way of saying it, that I work with, and I use this title because I just loved that you used to call yourself this multi-dimensional light worker. And,
Mm.
like, that's so beautiful, and you still very much are, obviously, but it's
I
like
was actually a light weaver.
light weaver. Okay, I
Yeah.
love it. And so I would love, just for us to spend a little time, going back to when we first started working together, which actually probably first started talking maybe in the fall of 2014, possibly, or maybe just right in the beginning of 2015.
Yeah, I think it was like it's 2 years ago, like maybe like really close to, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So taking us back there, will you just share, where were you at the time, and what kind of called you to wanting to have the support of a coach?
Yeah, yeah. So, in the beginning of 2015, I was an acupuncturist, and I had an
Right, you
acupuncture.
are still doing that then. Isn't that awesome? It feels like a world ago. Love it.
Worlds. Yeah. Yeah. So I was an acupuncturist and I was living and working in San Francisco. And I had just in November of 2014, that was when I like quit doing other work that wasn't my work. Like I was doing acupuncture and massage, which is the work that I did, but I was doing it in a spa. So I would say like that wasn't like my practice per se. And I had my own clinic simultaneously while I was doing that work. But in November 2014 was when I like stopped doing that work and went only into my own clinic. And then, and then in the beginning of 2015, I was still like feeling into those 4 months into just being totally on my own and supporting myself through my own work and, renting my own space and having my own clients and doing my own marketing and advertising and all of that stuff. And I had worked with another coach in the end, like the last few months of the previous year. And I had gotten a lot of really valuable things from that. And I had also just learned a lot more about myself and how I work. And so I was really clear. We completed our time together. And then I was just really clear about how I would try to like get out from under her thumb, or how I would try to like, oh, look at that, or the squirrel, and not really like show up fully for myself. So I was just really clear in that space about like what I needed. And I remember I was working a lot in my practice and feeling, like kind of overwhelmed about like how much I was working and the way that I was working. And I was super tired, and I had just come home, like, with all my dirty sheets and all of that stuff and all my client files. And I was laying on my bed and I was scrolling through Instagram, and I saw that you were offering applications to work with you. And it was literally kind of like, I just knew. I was just like so tired, but suddenly I found myself getting up out of bed and like on my computer, like filling out the application. And I was like, okay. And then I remember you and I had a telephone call I was actually in my clinic. Like I had finished my day and I was like laying on the bed, like on the table, on the heated pad. And we were just kind of going over everything. And I was really excited, and I just knew you from like knowing you through our overlapping social circles, and just the type of caliber of person that you are and were, and just the type of clients. I didn't know anybody specifically who had worked with you. I'd had friends who'd had like chats with you and stuff, but just knowing the vibration that you carry, I was just like, wow, like Willow works with some really amazing people. And so I was so scared. I remember I was so scared about the cost, about what it would look like to work with you. And I remember I was like totally like freaking out and like literally like wringing my hands. I was like, I don't know. And then I remember you were like, so do you actually want to know how much it is?
I love it.
And it wasn't
like, even prior to that, you might have just been like, let's just pretend like we don't even have to know the price. Like, that's hilarious. Like, because I know myself well enough in that process enough to know, like, if somebody's not asking, then that's where I'll come back and be like, so how is this sounding? Like, waiting for you to come back and ask. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for hearing that. That's fun.
Yeah. And so then when you told me how much it was, I was like, it was never, the monsters under your bed are never as big as you think they are. And so I was like, oh, okay. And it wasn't something that I could like afford with cash in the beginning, but I made the commitment to myself where I was like, okay, I'm going to put this on my credit card. And in 3 or 4 months, I'm going to be putting this on my debit card. And then I'm going to be paying that off. And that was what I did.
You held to it. I know. That was awesome. I love that. Such a great testament to the power of commitment as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And to sign up for a year, like that was also a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, and in particular, even if you are able to speak to like the desires of, what wasn't working, if you recall in your business, or what were you wanting to bring forth? I mean, I know you spoke to a little bit to feeling like you were kind of in this clinic, and, or even a better way might even be to frame it like what burst forth and opened up, like, through this power of the commitment and our work together, and what was clearly ripe, but then, in the container of this support, share with everyone, some of the transformation that happened for you in your business.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we first started working together, I had this, I'm like, was this already happened? Or I think this had already happened, where I had had a woman reach out to me. She lived in Tennessee, and she reached out to me and she said, I don't know what you do, but I just need to work with you.
And
And
so to
so,
catch everyone up too, like you hadn't been doing anything,
right.
you had only been seeing people in your clinic. So that was a big step. You were really excited to start working online more, be more location independent.
Yeah. Yeah. That was definitely something that was made super clear to me, was that, I felt like, so when you and I first started working together, I was feeling really kind of bottlenecked, in like my dharma. I was feeling bottlenecked in how I was showing up and who I was serving and how I was serving. Because that was in essence like the work that I had done previous with the previous coach, was that we had made all of these programs and things to help me to get online, because I was very clear that I was not being of greatest service sitting in a room with one person at a time and, teaching and working with people and healing with one person at a time. It was like, I felt like there was like the metaphor I use is that there was like a stampede of like wild horses that were like galloping like behind me. And like, then they were like one at a time was like getting out. And it was just like, it was not okay.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful like visual metaphor. That's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
which actually I think is very frustrating for a lot of creatives, because you have so much that wants to come through, so many visionaries, right? You have so much that wants to come through. And it's interesting you even say bottleneck too, is that I know you know this, and I love this quote by Brene Brown. I probably have actually said it in a few of these spotlight interviews already, but that, that unused creativity, or that unused force that wants to come through you, actually can start to manifest as grief in your body. Like it's really not healthy. Like you had said at the beginning, it really is truly honoring for your health and all senses of the word.
Yeah, totally. So I was, we had done all of this work, and then, then she was like, okay, so we're going to move your current clients into these online programs. And I was like, oh, but when I look and I see who is in these online programs, it's not the people who are my current clients. So I was like, okay, so that's a real invitation to do some work. But I was really wanting to move into the online sphere. And so I had this woman reach out to me, coincidentally. And she said, I don't know what you do, but I just know that I need to work with you. And so I was very upfront with her and told her that this was my first time exploring this, and that she was a wonderful catalyst for me to dive into this. And so I had created an outline for her of a pattern that I had been seeing in the work that I had been doing with my clients. And I could see the trajectory, but like we never got to kind of like a completion place, because all of the other stuff with like physical manifestations of different discomforts would come up, and you attend to those things. But then like this larger spiritual trajectory wouldn't ever get addressed. And so I put that into a 6-month program for her. She ended up not being able to do it. But then that was when I started to talk with you, and someone else had told me that she thought it was a group program, and we were thinking it was an in-person program. And then when I started working with you, you were like, no, this is an online program. And yeah, just like really like fleshing that out. And, that was also kind of dovetailed into, not only was I feeling ready to leave my physical in-person brick and mortar practice, also the angels are very funny. Coincidentally, the woman who I was renting space from, she called me and she said, "Oh, I have really terrible news. We're going to have to close the clinic for 6 months beginning in June." And I was like, just like, I could see the angels. They're just like,
Right. Like we're just need a little bit more of a push here to get this woman on her path.
totally, totally. So yeah, you really helped me to, like, I had no idea about like recurring payment plans or like, doing all this like graphic design work. And like, yeah, like like literally it was like giving birth. I mean, there was like some labor pains that went into that. And it was I was so fortunate that you were in Hong Kong, because literally like it was like 4:30 in the morning and I was like, Willow.
Yeah, through your launches, I was like, I'm right here. I got this. You're like, good, because I'm not sleeping. What do I do? Yeah. Love it.
Totally, totally. So, so that was really like, in like your care and through your support, I was able to move from an in-person practice and to tell everyone that I am finishing my practice and this is the time when it's going to stop. So then I had huge amounts of people coming to see me for that. And then, and like so grateful for your support, because it really was just a lot of energy to hold, having all of these people from my physical practice coming in wanting to see me, while simultaneously trying to like build out the sales page and get the back end infrastructure set up, and then to do the launch for that. And there's only like 1 week in between the close of my practice and the opening of that program. um, but yeah, that was what really allowed me to move to, if I like to ascend really
Well,
from.
I'm actually even remembering too that I feel like this was around that time, or maybe once that shift happened was really when you brought out, had that beautiful post of coming out of the spiritual closet, coming out of the closet as this like, and it was this real, I mean, you've had several of these, but I just think that like through that birth, you stepped into your magic and your power even more. And I mean, speak to that a little bit about like how powerful, because also you were declaring it. Like it wasn't just happening, something that was happening like, oh, my offerings are changing from this to this. Like you came out and embodied it and modeled it for so many people.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah. And it's so funny that we're talking about this. I just have to presence this, that we're talking about this now, when yesterday was the end of this like Pisces Virgo eclipse axis. And what you're speaking about, that I'm going to speak more to in just a minute, occurred on the first one. So it's like literally like bookending this time. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
I'm actually I have to presence this as well. Like, I'm so enjoying this recap. Like, how powerful is this for us to be able to be like, this is what happened, especially because, we're so much more removed from that time. And so we're able to see like, wow. I mean, it really gives reference to like how magical it was. Like, wow, that was some like straight up magic stuff that went down there.
yes, yeah. So it was a month and a half into working with you, when I was going to be interviewed by my friend Brett for this company Cure Joy. And
I love it.
I know, right? And so Cure Joy has this like massive social media audience. And so we were doing these interviews, and when Brett sent me the interview questions, they were all about acupuncture, and like she was like couching me as an acupuncturist. And I was doing acupuncture, but like even my acupuncture had gotten like so shamanic, I was
Your whole
doing
soul
it.
was just like bursting out to do more.
Yeah, yeah. And I've told this story many times in Brett's presence too. And so but yeah, I was like just so upset that she was my friend, and like how could she like not see me? And I felt really unseen, and to ask me these questions as if like she was asking to the person who was existing like a year before.
Yeah. You're like,
When
I'm
I
rapidly evolving, sister. You got to keep up.
yeah, when I felt like I had done all of this work, and I was like, oh my God, like that's not being seen.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so I wrote, and it was, we did the interview on the equinox, which was also the eclipse. It was a solar eclipse in Pisces. And I was like, either we're going to internally combust or it's going to be really awesome. And but we had to redo all of the questions, and I answered them from a much more like spiritual bent, as opposed to like, yes, this is the acupuncture point for weight loss or whatever. But yeah, I got really, really like irate, and that was when I got this tattoo. And this tattoo was a download that I received in yoga class a week after the first time that I did LSD. And that is my logo now. And I wanted to get it, like, because of Brett sending me those questions, I wanted to get it tattooed on my right arm, on my forearm, where it would be visible, because I was like, I need to have this part of myself, this like download channel connection to spirit. I need to have that to be really public.
Yeah.
And
no more in the closet. No more like,
no.
like this is, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that also prompted me to write the post that was previous to the post you're talking about, which was the catalyst for the one you're talking about, which was why I am not an acupuncturist.
Yeah.
And so I really denounced that name. And at that point, it's like I've had so many different like titles or names. I think at that point I was like a spiritual healer. Or maybe I was using multidimensional healer at that point, but yeah. And then shortly thereafter came the post coming out of the magic closet, where I talked about my connection to psychedelics. I talked about how important it has been for me working with ayahuasca in my business, and how many insights have come through that. And just to speak about my journeys through following the cosmic breadcrumbs and not having judgment around however they come, and really honoring and valuing my own path and my own journey. And yeah, it was super, super scary. Yeah. And super, super empowering at the same time. So yeah, a lot of layers shedding.
Big time. Ah, God. I mean, and also like I have, and I want to make sure that we get to this, because I, of course, have this full view of what's happened since then. So, we could deep dive into every single one of these, because you had certainly not just one birth that year, like in our time working together, like you were so committed, and such a powerful force. Great example of when you do make that dedication and that commitment to your magic and to, just birthing what is coming through you, that the universe like just completely shifts and reorganizes itself in support. So, I would love, so I'll say it, but if there's anything here you want to clarify, please do. But if I recall, it was that program that you were wanting to put out, which kind of clarified itself as a few different programs. And so maybe just encapsulate, some of the transformation, the things that you had then done. I mean, I want to speak to even just like the members and the people that called in. And so, yeah, just speak to what was then created after you had made those powerful commitments.
Yeah. So then that was when, the launch that we were speaking of, and that birthing process, and like my first online course that I taught, that was called The Awakening. And that was a 6-month course in spiritual awakening. And then that evolved again. I did teach it a second time. So I sat in that space for a year. And the second time, it was really clear that like the work that like, exactly as we were just talking about, even as my own life was an example, that when you step into your magic and you step into that that partner dance with the cosmos, and you're listening to the subtle cues that are coming and following those, the abundance and the rewards that come from that are beyond your wildest dreams, literally. And that was what I saw for my students too. So the second time that I taught that class, it was really like, oh, this is about manifestation, because that was really what was coming through the clarification of the spiritual work. And then from that, I also, it was like around that same time period where I was birthing myself and also like birthing this course. And that was when I came up with the hashtag Magic Tribe. And I took down my bio on Instagram and just put up like calling all witches, wizards, priestesses, shamans, medicine men and women. Like the time has come. We have been hiding for too long, and it's time for us to come together. We have to find each other. And it was just like, literally, it's like, like when you come into alignment, like the universe just makes you into an electromagnet. And all of a sudden it was like all of these people started coming to my Instagram page. Yeah. And, flash forward 2 years later, or just under that. But now I think there's over 19,000 photos using that hashtag. So,
and a massive community. I know you run a community, and I mean, even I love that already that is so centered around Instagram, and share with them as well, like all of your powerful work that you do with Instagram. Share that one.
Yeah, well, and that was so funny because, you were one of the first people, and like there were other people too, and you were like
through Instagram, like that. Yeah. I was just telling that story the other day. Somebody was like, "I don't use Instagram," and I was like, "I totally get clients through Instagram." Like,
oh my gosh,
this big energetic, which is and I told them about your course.
Yeah. So yeah, you were like, what are you doing over there? You need to teach a class on Instagram. And I was like, oh, like, that's not anything special, just like, but I just kind of like kept that in, my back pocket, and I was like, okay. And then, we came to the time where we completed our work together, and what I've seen through my own experience working with you and with other coaches and also with my own students is that there's the time when you're in the container space, and then there's the time after, which is almost equally or more potent than, it's always like one of my favorite sayings too. It's like, it's not what happens at Burning Man, it's what happens after Burning Man. So I came and I went to Maui. That was another thing too that I was really working on calling in when I was working with you, was to move to Maui, and I'm living here now. Yeah. But I had just come here for the first time, and I got back, and it was like the universe, like I thought I was going to come back with like a home and like be ready to move right away, and that like didn't really happen. And so the universe was like, you have things inside of you that, you got to cough that up if you want to be light enough to be able to fly. And so that was to create the energetic hygiene course, and as a freestanding video course, and then also to create the energetics of Instagram, it's an amazing course. I just finished teaching the fourth round of that. So I taught it 4 times in the last year, and there were 3 to 4 sections. So I was teaching the same class 3 to 4 times a week for 6 weeks at a time. And it was really an immersion for me as well, where I was like, I really want to, throw myself into the fire and become a teacher.
Yeah. Well, and I just happened to look at this actually the other day as I was seeing one of your posts. I like love your posts, of course. And I've even found and connected with some really brilliant people through you and through your tribe that you've created, and the people that, you have such an amazing interaction and everything that you've built there. But share, I happened to spot the numbers the other day, but like share how your numbers have transformed in the last year. Talk about like calling it in, sister. Can you even recall what it was a year ago?
Well, I remember I remember like around like so when I did the second launch of the Awakening, which was like November of 2015,
Mm-hmm.
um, I was like really trying to get over 2,000 followers on Instagram. And so then now,
Yeah.
yeah,
Now.
now it's like almost 9.5 thousand. So,
Oh, awesome.
yeah, it's really,
And they are like real engaged beautiful community where you had like a few comments way back then, but now your comments, like you have so many comments.
I know. Sometimes I get overwhelmed where I'm like, I really want to have that heart to heart interaction with you, but there's 100 comments on here.
That's awesome. Love it.
Yeah, and we've walked through like that's and so that was what like the energetics of Instagram was about like how to do apps and photography and basic Instagram stuff that you would learn in any other class, but the main point of it was to really create a safe container so that people could feel like they could access their authentic voice and they could share vulnerably, because that's been there's hardly anything that's happened in my life that my Instagram community doesn't know about.
Yeah.
So, and I also like don't, I've had to really be mindful about how I do share those really deeply personal, but deeply transformational things like my breakup. Um, and to be able to share that with the lesson, and to share the gold that I have dug out from the coal, or the diamond that I have like squeezed out from the coal, and not to just like be like,
Yes.
so
Well, and being so intentional with that energy, that's exactly what it all is. And you're, yeah, just swimming in that. Well, so I'm so curious too. So now you've run that 4 times, and I'm assuming you've like called in various clients as a result of this work. And, you know, so catch me up. So for everyone that's watching this, Rachel and I got on the call, and we actually haven't had a call in a while. And so we were like so excited to finally talk to each other and like catch up. But I was like, hold it all, and then like, let's let it out for real. So I'm literally hearing a lot of this, even though I follow you pretty closely and get to see. But yeah, just share what you're up to now and like how this is all transformed and where you've arrived now 2 years later.
yeah, so I went
I
through
left off it a year ago, but yeah.
yeah. I went through a really, really powerful transformation at the end of last year where I was running a program that it just kind of imploded. And yeah, it was really a big learning experience for me. And my takeaway from that is that it was important for me to like, I feel like if I have my little like, my hand was like in San Francisco and it was like I was very embedded into that community and in like in-person work there. And then slowly I was like, and then I like, across the ocean to come to Maui. And then I got to Maui and I was like, okay, but like that wasn't enough. It was like I was still doing all of this online work, but like my intention in coming to Maui is that this is my home and to really be embedded and of service to the community here. And so I couldn't do that by just keeping my business 100% online. And also just getting really present in the fact that like I am really good one-on-one. Um, and also learning about the difference between being a teacher and having people to come to you to learn how to do what you do, and then also being a healer, whether that is in person and or in a group, and to have people to like I used to have people come to see me in person in an office type setting, a clinic type of setting, to receive like my energy. And so now I'm really interested in exploring that on a group scale, as opposed to having to teach a group and to manage everyone's, because it's like managing 15 people's transformational experiences at the same time. It's a lot of work. And but then now I'm really interested in exploring what is it like to be a healer but for a group, so that it's kind of like you are transmitting the energy and you are providing the experience, and they are doing their own healing work in that space. And of course you can help them with that, but so yeah, exploring the differences between the people who want to know how to do what you do and the people who simply want to receive your medicine. Um, so I've been really, really gifted with amazing connections here in Maui, and I really literally found my voice since coming to Maui. About 2 months after I got here, I started to sing these tones. They started to come to me.
Awesome.
And the water has been a huge part of helping to activate that. And I remember like one of the first times I sang them out loud, like was to the ocean, like in the water to the ocean. And then in December, I went on this snorkeling trip and had this like huge activation happen. We went on the backside of Molokini, which is a sunken crater, and there is a crack there where the water doesn't it doesn't crush anything in front of it when it comes into the land. It actually it'll hold you right there 3 feet in front of it, and it'll like raise you 11 feet up and down. And there's a lot of, it's a sunken crater, right? There's a lot of like hidden things there. When we were diving down, the guy was like, do you want to see a bomb from, from the war? It's like, well, it was right there. So there's a lot of hidden things in that frequency. And when I was coming back from there, I was driving and I had said to a friend, I feel like I'm supposed to channel these extraterrestrial tones, and I'm supposed to vibrate my throat to do that. And it's kind of like when you're belly dancing. I was like, how am I supposed to, how does it work?
And yet, once you move into it and you do it, it's like you literally just needed to choose to allow it through, right?
Yeah. So I was driving after that snorkeling trip. I was driving and I was super tired. So I was trying to keep myself awake. So I was singing the tones, and then I just put my finger and just started to vibrate my finger. And then I figured out that I could do it without using my finger. And so I've just been singing those by myself in the car. and then I was in ceremony for my birthday, and I was invited to share a song there. And so I shared them there and had amazing response. And then I started connecting with this sound healer here on the island. And it's really funny because he's sitting right down there. and I shared the tones with him, and he was like, oh my goodness, like we need to create, people need to know about this. Like, this is like clearly a clear transmission. And so he has a weekly event, and actually tomorrow I'm going to sing for the first time, like at an in-person event, and to share the tones. And it's just like so many opportunities are opening up. I'm also collaborating with another woman, and she's making a meditation track that is 10 minutes long that has my vocals. And then she's also weaving in binaural beats and other sounds. And I told her I want it to feel like underwater yet in space, and I want people to have like goosebumps of remembering and just start crying because they resonate with the sounds. And so
this is like no surprise, right, that we're being so guided to these co-creators that are, truly, it's like, could you have ever asked for being connected to these beings, and
I know.
really found this community, and that literally it's almost like you are not even really asking for it. It's just like all of a sudden it shows up like, hi, I'm right here. But by you, you know, taking action and you following and listening and being so centered, that's what's, you know, just like clients, that's what's allowing to have it magnetized to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, and I feel like that is, you know, what I work with my clients on. It's like, you know, how can you come into alignment in your life? And honestly, it's like really, really, really being honest with yourself about what your secret wishes are. You know, it's like, that's something I've been playing with.
Right? Listening to what's
Yeah.
telling you and then acting on behalf of that.
Yeah, that's something that I've really been playing with over the last several months. It's not like, what are your like secret fears, but it's like, what are your secret wishes? I like really wish that you're afraid to even say out loud, because it's like so big.
Yeah, like the fact that you want to channel intergalactic like messages. Yeah,
No big deal.
I love it. So I would love to hear, you know, we could, I'm sure, no doubt talk for hours, and I just have loved like hearing what is coming through. And I would love, you know, for those who are looking to potentially like bring a coach into their life, and that we had this like beautiful year, this very, very transformational year of working together, and what a gift that was. You know, I would love to hear, you know, what would you say in terms of, you know, even at the beginning when you were kind of feeling afraid of that investment, and somebody who's considering that, you know, what would you say in terms of, yeah, like I'm curious of your take now, especially on the other side of it, even a year later.
Yeah, I mean, it's so worth it. You know, it's so worth it to be in that space with, you know, to have someone holding space for you for, you know, in my case, it was for a year. You know, it's like, it's a very, very powerful thing to gift yourself, where, because it's like to have someone to say, I'm listening, you know, I'm listening. Like, that's because so much of the time it's like we have these ideas and we might write them down in our journals, but like, you know, we might tell them to our friends, but no one's really like listening and holding space and like creating the container for your personal work. And it's like, I totally understand the importance of taking care of your physical body. And like, yes, many people have trainers for years and years and years and years, but it's like to have a trainer, like a coach for your dharma, your soul's purpose. It's one of the most, like the most powerful. I feel like, yeah, when I am stepping into my vulnerability, and when I am riding into the edges of where I feel nervous and scared, and like, am I really that worthy? Because that's what it really comes down to. It's like, am I really that worthy? Do I think that I deserve to have someone to listen to me, to have someone to hold space for me? For that's independent of like, am I worthy to have these dreams, right? Because that's the huge piece too. Am I worthy to, you know, be an internationally known multi-galactic channel, like channeling songs of sacred remembrance? And yeah, it's like, you know, like, that's like, in some part of me, it's like, that's too big, you know. But it's like, no, to have the validity of having those dreams in the first place, and then to have someone who is there to witness you and to help you, to walk you through, like, you know, you provided so much like technical support for me, but even independent of that, just like your presence and like showing up and saying like, oh, how are your dreams, how are you moving along, what is the next step? And it gets really, confusing when you're, when you're trying to birth these things alone, and it's, it gets really.
And so to be able to, I feel like have someone then be able to reflect it back. I mean, just like you said, where I was like, hello, do you see what's happening with your Instagram world? And like, to be able to really have that reflection where you're in it, you're just doing what you're doing, especially when it's your gifts. These come through you so easily. So to have that sounding board, that mirror that says like, this is big, are you seeing this? And then you're able to then work with that and then ultimately, it's you, it gets to come through you, but yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah. Well, and one of the biggest things that I remember too was, like I was freaking out about something, de rigueur. And I remember you were like, what is true in this moment? So it's like, because in that space of birthing, it's like we can get really spun out in our fears.
Yeah.
And to
tell these stories in the past or fears for the future, right? And so coming back into that present moment, which is really like honoring your knowing at the core of who you are.
Yeah. So it was really important to have you as that reflection, to be like, okay, so what is here now? What is this right here? And everything else is a mystery. It's unknown, and it's not happening yet. Yeah. So it's not happening right now.
Especially, you do have that piece of you that is such a great planner. And I mean, that's one of your superpowers, I think, is like really being able to see all the things happening on all the different levels. And, just even energetically being able to like pull and then organize and reshift. It's a lot of the energy work I know you do. And same in your business. Like I've always loved how you organize your businesses and watching you do that. And yet sometimes when we're so close to it, it can be hard to kind of make sense of all the layers and everything. So to be able to have that other person helps you see it and then be able to move that much faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was super, super grateful. It was definitely worth the investment for sure. And then it just showed me that I could pay for something like that. And that was really empowering. Definitely.
Awesome. I'm just celebrating you so big time. And the only thing that's missing on this is being able to give you a huge hug. Because I'm pretty sure in the entire time, like these last, all the time we worked together, we only got to see each other in person that one time. And it's definitely, I so get your wanting to be able to work more in person for that in-person connection. And so I know our paths will cross one day in person, and I'm looking forward to it.
Totally. Yeah. Come to Maui.
Yeah. Sounds awesome. I mean, you have such a beautiful community there. It's been so fun to see, because I know a few of you that are there. And so it seems like a pretty magical place. No surprise that you have found yourself there.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm super blessed.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I will link to all of your fabulous places where people can find you online, most definitely the Instagram and Magic Tribe, and then all the offerings that you have on your website and all the ways that that you are currently sharing and teaching and just lighting up the world with your gifts. I have no doubt that there's going to be people in my community that see this and are going to be like, oh my gosh, tell me more.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Willow.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. To learn all about the work I do with visionary entrepreneurs around the world and to access more inspiring videos and helpful resources for you on your path, be sure to visit willowlovesyou.com.